What's up, everyone? How are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Naruto unlocked a god-level bloodline nobody knew existed? If you enjoy, then please like, share, and do comments. Well, look who we have here. The sound of the voice slowly woke the sleeping ninja up, making him groan in complaint. Planning to get up sometime this year, it might be better if you don't, you look like shit, said the voice mockingly as the blonde slowly opened his eyes. Whoever the hell you are, I swear I'm going to kill you, Naruto said as he blinked a few times to clear his eyes. Really? And how do you plan to do that way over there while lying on your back? What? Are you going to do it by talking me to death? Said the voice, seeming to be having a lot of fun trying to annoy the blonde ninja. Who the hell is this jerk? Naruto thought, sitting up so that he could see where the voice was coming from. When Naruto looked around, he found himself sitting in the middle of the forest of death, right where he and his team had been just before they had been attacked. Or rather, right where he had found his teammates being attacked by that strange, long-tounged man right after he had been eaten by a giant snake. Jumping to his feet, Naruto looked around searching for the snake man and his teammates. Where the hell are they? Have I really been out that long? I hope the others are okay, he though, still searching for any sign of his teammates in the little clearing. You won't be able to find them, said the strange voice that had woken Naruto up in the first place. It's just us in here after all, or rather just you, seeing as I'm actually somewhere else, it said, sounding as though it was very amused by the situation. Looking slightly startled, Naruto turned his head in every direction, trying to catch sight of the man whose voice he could hear so clearly that it seemed to come from right next to him. Who's there? Show yourself, the blonde shouted, wishing more than anything that he could just find the location of the annoying voice. It was really starting to piss him off. Why not come and find me instead? You are a ninja after all. If you can come and find me, then maybe I might just tell you who I am, but if not, the voice said, pausing as he thought of what to say next. Then I guess you'll just have to get over it then, now won't you? Growling, Naruto quickly did a quick scan of the area before he decided to take to the tree tops to get a better look of the area of the forest that he was in. When I get my hands on that bastard, I'm going to show him that I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the world's #1 ninja, he thought, looking down at the forest that now stood below him. I doubt that, the voice said, seeming to have just read the boy's thoughts, though it would be nice to see you try, he added with a soft chuckle. Naruto growled as he started heading in the direction that he thought that the voice was coming from, having spotted a spot in the forest that wasn't moving while the area around it was. Moving fast as he could manage, the blonde-haired ninja made it halfway there before the forest suddenly changed. The branches at the top of the trees, including the ones that he was about to run across the top of, suddenly became slick, as though they were made out of glass instead of wood and leaves. Surprised at the sudden change, Naruto plummeted straight down onto the ground where he landed on his head, which in turn caused a small crater and several trees to shake, dropping hundreds of kunai with exploding tags attached to the ends right down onto the same spot that he had landed on. Righting himself, Naruto looked up and quickly moved out of the way of the falling kunai just in time to miss the exploding. Sighing heavily, the blonde ninja sat down to take a moment to catch his breath and wits having just had both scared out of him just moments ago. That bastard! Is he trying to kill me? Who the hell is that guy? He thought, lying his head against the barely standing tree behind him. Sighing deeply, Naruto almost didn't catch the low beeping sound that was coming from that rock that he just happened to be sitting on. Blinking several times, Naruto sighed once more as a thought suddenly came to his mind. Oh, Naruto started to say as the rock under him exploded, making a loud farting sound and sending a rather foul-smelling powder through the air all around him. When Naruto landed and finished coughing at the horrible smell that was invading his senses, he quickly got up and left the area, wondering if the man that had been sending him messages was really trying to kill him after all. He also wondered if some strange god out there was trying to punish him for all the horrible practical jokes he played, because that one was definitely up his ally. I'll have to remember to try that one out on Sasuke, as he started heading in the direction that he had been moving in just moments before he had fallen prey to the cruel man's practical joke. Sighing, Naruto finally managed to reach the point of his destination, only to find that it was another trap. He knew it was another trap, owing to the fact that the trap was so horribly obvious. Sighing, Naruto started to turn around and walk in the direction that he had just come, only to walk right into a trap that he hadn't seen. What the? He shouted as several shuriken with pink flamingo pictures plastered all over them came flying straight at him out of a large hole in the ground right in front of him. Dodging them as best he could, Naruto found himself suddenly standing on the mound that just happened to be the horribly obvious trap. Looking down, the blonde almost face faltered when a note came flying out of the mound that read "Got ya" on it. "Where the hell are you, you bastard?" he shouted, pulling at his hair in frustration. After several minutes of silence, the blonde found that he was calm. When he finally decided that he had better get moving again, Naruto slowly turned around only to come face to face with a man that he never would have thought that he would meet even in his wildest dreams. The reason he was so shocked was because the man was none other than the deceased fourth Hokage, who seemed to be very much alive. "Well, took you long enough. I've been waiting here for you to finally get here forever," the yondaime said, smiling as he walked over to the young blonde ninja. "Then again, I wasn't expecting you to actually be in here for another few years. How did that happen anyways?" he added with a slightly confused look on his face as he thought of the possible reasons for his own questions. Naruto stared at the man before him, not knowing what to say. After several minutes, when he finally managed to think of something to say, he asked the one question that he was able to come up with. "Am I dead?" he said, looking into the face of the man that had saved the village so many years before when he was still a newborn. Smiling at the question, Yondaime Arashi answered it with the best of his ability, and seeing as he knew exactly where they were, he was probably the best person to answer it anyways, as well as the only one able to do so at the present moment. "No, no, no, don't worry, you're still alive. Me, on the other hand, I've been dead for almost your whole life, remember? Actually, we're in the seal I put on you to hold the Kyuubi, pretty cool, huh?" he said with a huge grin on his face as he scratched the back of his head. Unfortunately for the older ninja, he didn't know that Naruto was easily worried as well as freaked out, and being stuck in a seal just happened to be one of the things that could easily make him do just that. "We're what?" the younger blonde screamed, pulling at his hair as he ran around in circles. Being stuck in a seal was definitely not a good thing at all. "I can't be stuck in this seal. I gotta get out," he shouted, looking around frantically as though he could find the exit if he just looked hard enough. Sighing deeply, Arashi quickly walked over to the young, panicking ninja and sternly bopped him on the top of his head, knocking the poor teen to the ground in the process. "I didn't say you were stuck here. Why don't you use those brains of yours?" "Shesh, if your mother could see you, know she would be ashamed, or she would be still cooing over how cute you are," he said before a thought occurred to him. "Wait, aren't you 14? Why do you still look like you have some baby fat on you?" he asked, looking closely at the teen that he had nearly knocked out just moments ago. Sitting up when he heard Arashi mention his mother, Naruto looked at the man that stood over him, looking down at him. "You knew my mother," he exclaimed, hope filling him as he thought that he might finally get a chance to find out something about his parents. "Does that mean you also knew my father?" Smirking, the fourth looked at Naruto as though he had been waiting for a chance to answer that very question for the blonde-haired teen. "Of course I know him. I am him." Blinking several times, Naruto tried to think of something to say. While he was doing that, his mind was also moving at a disturbingly rapid pace. "He can't be my father. Would someone have known if he had a kid? And wouldn't someone have told me by now? What's going on? Wait, I know this is just a dream. I just got knocked out by that strange snake guy, and this is just a dream. Of course. Okay, this is just a dream. All I have to do is wake up and everything will go back to normal," he said, while his mind moved on to trying to find a way to wake him up. Sighing deeply, Arashi knew that he should have been expecting this kind of reaction from a kid that was clearly his father's child. "Brat, this isn't a dream. It's real, and you're going to have to get over it so that I can get on with training you in here. We don't exactly have much time," the older ninja said as he gave the teen a piercing look in order to make sure that he got his point across better. "Well, if this isn't a dream, then what the heck is going on, and why haven't I been told about all of this before? I mean, don't you think that someone would have mentioned to me before now that I was the child of one of the Hokages? It's kind of a big deal after all," Naruto reasoned, trying to explain to the man in front of him why he couldn't possibly be the child of the fourth Hokage. Sighing deeply once more, Arashi sat down in front of the teen ninja in a chair that seemed to just poof into existence. "Well, Sarutobi didn't tell you or anyone else because I didn't want them to. You see, it would have endangered you if people would have known that you are my son. I do have a lot of enemies after all," he said, looking down at the ground in front of him as he spoke. He sometimes thought about whether or not he had done the right thing. After all, he did have a lot of time to think while he was trapped inside a seal on his own son's stomach. Naruto looked at the man that sat before him, not wanting to believe what he had just heard. Even though he didn't want to believe it, the explanation made a lot of sense. It was no secret that there were thousands of people that would do anything if they could just get the fourth Hokage back by killing his son. It was a chilling fact, but everyone knew that if Arashi's enemies knew he had a child, they would do anything they could to kill him or her in as painful a way as possible. But that doesn't tell me why me, and what happened to my mom, and what about all my relatives? What about all of that? If I'm really your son, then you know all about all of that, don't you? Then tell me. Tell me everything you know and tell me why I should believe you. He said, too overcome with emotion to do anything but hang on the other man's every word. You really want to know? All right then, where should I begin? He said, scratching the back of his head, a move that both father and son used on a regular basis for almost any reason. Well, you're probably wondering why no one ever knew about your mother and me, right? Because it would have been big news if the Hokage was with someone, right? Well, you see, your mother's family is among the most closely hidden secrets in Konoha. All of them hide themselves and tend to just blend in with everyone else. All the civilians, that is. They really like to keep secrets, and they're good at it. Sorry, Sosh Pupit. But I just couldn't think of anything else that I could do to make them hard to know about apart from making the whole family a group of secretive people. Sorry. They don't usually go to the academy. Instead, they do a lot of home schooling for their children. And then when it comes time for them to be ninjas, they usually have the Hokage give their children special test, then have them put onto a special team so that no one knows about them being ninjas. Don't get me wrong, the Hyuga clan knows, as well as does the Uchiha clan. The three clans have been competing with each other for the title of the #1 family since I can remember, probably since the start of the village anyways. Most people know of the Uzumaki family, or at least they know that the family was one of our most prominent families. I'm pretty sure that it was just a few families that knew about them being ninjas. Again, as I said, that includes the Hyugas and the Uchihas. No, as I was saying, people didn't know about me and your mom because everyone was expecting me to start seeing a ninja instead of a civilian, so when I started dating Arosha, no one, he started to say before his son interrupted him, exited that he finally heard his mother's name for the first time. My mother's name was Arosha. What was she like? Was she smart? Was she funny? What did she look like? Naruto asked, wanting to know more about his mother, having never had anyone talk to him about her. And now that he thought about it, his father's statement about her family explained that too. Arashi smiled at the excited teen in front of him. He knew exactly how his son felt. He had known that it would be hard for Naruto as he grew up. And he also knew that not having a mother or a father would make it that much harder for the teenaged ninja. She was the most beautiful person you can imagine, and she wasn't just smart. She was brilliant. She had eyes of pure jade and long hair that just does as it wants, that makes her seem so much more wild and fun. He said, smiling at the boy, while remember everything about her as he did so. After several minutes in which the two sat in a comfortable silence, Arashi finally began to finish what he had been telling his son about in the first place. Anyways, like I was saying, when I started dating Arosha, no one really took any notice because they thought we must just be friends, because they thought that I wouldn't date anyone unless they were a really strong ninja. Obviously, this wasn't true, but it did work out to my advantage over the years. So that's why people didn't know about me and your mom. Now, as to why only the third knew, it was because we didn't want people to know until I had already appointed a new Hokage, or until I could get rid of most of my enemies. After all, while your mother's bloodline limit was, Arashi said, but stopped as he was quickly cut off once again by his son. We have a blood limit, Naruto exclaimed, his eyes lighting up again until they were so bright that they almost seemed to glow by their own power. Chuckling at his son's antics, Arashi answered the question as best he could, though he didn't know much about the family's bloodline limit, just how to activate it and the basics of what it could do. Be prepared to see him get the description very wrong on what it does. Yes, it's similar to some of the things that the Hyuga's bloodline limit, or at least I think it is. It can let the user make a small wall of chakra, much like the shield-like move that the Hyugas make around their bodies in a sphere. The difference is that you should be able to direct where you want this shield to be anywhere in a 3-foot radius of yourself. You might also have the ability to what others see and to see chakra tenketsus. You might be able to learn how to do the same fighting that they do. What I mean to say is that with the ability to see these tenkatsus, you should also be able to close them or open them more just like the Hyugas do. That is, if you can actually do that. Your mother never really explained much about her family's abilities. They were very secretive after all. Apart from that, your mother also mentioned that she could sling things, though she said that she could only do small object within a 3-foot radius of her. so I don't know how useful this move could be, but it has to have some applications to it apart from throwing things. After I teach you how to activate it, I think you should try to apply everything to different things, see what you can do with them. And you should also remember that this is just all I know about the bloodline limit, and that I could be wrong. Your mother died before she could ever really tell me anything about it. We were always kind of caught up in baby talk and stuff. So the point is there is some other things that I think were just rumors. But for all I know, there could be a lot more that it can do apart from that. And as I was going to say, it's very powerful, but it can't protect you from everything. Remember, there is no such thing as a perfect move or ability. Arashi said, pausing to see if his son had any questions about the bloodline limit. Naruto thought about all that his father had just told him before he finally asked the question that had been plaguing him for the past few minutes, as his father explained all the things he knew about the bloodline limit that was from his mother's family. After a moment, Naruto finally asked a question that wouldn't leave him alone. He kind of had a feeling that it would be nice to know if he ever planned on actually using his mother's bloodline limit. What's a tenketsu? I've never heard of that before, he said, nodding his head as he tried to search his memories from the time he was in class for anything that might have to do with the strange thing that his father was telling him about. Arashi almost face-faulted at this. Chakra points were one of the basic fundamentals of ninja techniques, and he couldn't believe that his son had never heard of them before. What the hell do you have them teaching them up at the school Sarutobi? He thought in mild annoyance as he tried to come up with a simply and quick way to explain things to his son. Well, I guess the easiest way to explain them is by going over something called chakra points with you, he began, before being cut off once again by the impatient young ninja. That's what they are? Well, why didn't you just say so? I know all about chakra points. They're the little holes on your chakra coils that let chakra flow in and out of your body. Uruka-sensei told us all about them back at the academy. Is that Tanketsumi thing some sort of a special name for them or something? He asked, wondering if there were other cool names for this sort of thing. The older man smiled down at him, unable to do anything else as he saw how interested his son was in all of the things he was learning. Whoever this Uruka is, thank you for teaching my son as well as you have. He might be a little goofy, but I can see he's already becoming a fine young man just by seeing his thirst for knowledge. He, though, while deciding that Naruto's hair was in need of ruffling, as he quickly ruffled his hair for the first time. Yeah, something like that. The two of them sat in silence once more before Arashi finally decided that he should continue telling his son about everything that he needed to know before he would have to wake up again. Anyways, that's why no one knew about me and your mom, or even about you. Sarutobi was the only one that knew. Now, apart from all of that, because I know that you're probably wondering why I choose you to put the Kyuubi in, it's because you're my son, and I could ask someone else to let me use their child. It just wouldn't have been right to say, I don't want my son to live a hard life, so let me use yours instead. How could I do that? How could I really ask someone to do something like that when I myself didn't want to do it? And since it had to be put into a child, or rather a newborn baby, you were the only one I could think of to do it. Besides, I have faith in you that you will one day fight and defeat the Kyuubi. I know you'll defeat that thing when no one else has been able to do it. Arashi looked at his son, hoping that his son could forgive him for what he had done, and it didn't take his wish long to come true. Really? You believe in me? Yeah. And with that, Naruto did something that he had always thought that he would never get a chance to do. He hugged the man that he now knew was his father. He was just so happy. It had been hard for him to believe that this man was his father. But once he finally did believe it, he was just happy that his father believed that he could be strong enough to do something that no one else had ever been able to do before. And it was that belief that had caused Naruto to suddenly get up off the spot that he was sitting on and wrap his arms around the man that sat in a chair that had popped out of nowhere a while ago right before this conversation started, and hug him. Arashi smiled down at the boy that had his arms wrapped around him and gently wrapped his arms around him as well. After a minute, the two slowly pulled apart, smiling at each other. Deciding that time was not going to wait for them, Arashi slowly got out of his chair and smiled as his son gawked when it suddenly vanished into a puff of white-grayish smoke. Well, come on, I have to show you where I hid everything. That way you'll remember where they are when you wake up and can start training, and I need to show you something cool about the cage bunchin that I know you've been using. I'm sure it will come in handy when you train. AN for those of you who read the manga, shut up. I know it's obvious, but I'm on a roll, so there. Naruto started to follow his father, wondering what he could be showing him. He also wondered what his father knew about the cage bunchin that he didn't. After all, it was his favorite move. He had always thought that he knew everything there was to know about it. As the two walked in silence, Naruto began to notice that even though they were walking at a slow pace, the scenery was changed rapidly. For every one step they took, they seemed to move 10 times that past where they were just a second ago. After only a few moments, Naruto found himself standing in front of the one house that he usually avoided due to its only residents. It was the same house that Sasuke lived in down in the Uchiha district of the village. Blinking rapidly, Naruto's confusion increased as he was led around to the back of the house, only to have his father stop in front of a porch that was about 1.5 feet off the ground. "Here it is," Arashi said, turning to look at his son as he smiled brightly. Here what is?" Naruto asked blankly, not knowing what it was that the older ninja wanted to show him. It was really confusing to have someone lead you around a house and then say, "Here it is," without telling you what it was that you were supposed to be looking at. Under this porch is a large chest that has several objects, a map, and some scrolls and letters in it. When you wake up and have finished the exams, I want you to come here and get them. I left them for you because I knew that no one would be stupid enough to go looking under the Uchiha house, because everyone knows that if they catch you, you're not going to be seen ever again. But since they aren't around anymore, I guess it should be safe for you to go and get them whenever you want. And if you're afraid that that Sasuke kid is going to catch you, just go to Sarutobi and tell him what's going on. I'm sure he might think of something." Arashi said, smiling as he saw his son's face go from being confused to being happy in almost the blink of an eye. "Anyways, while I do want you to read and study the techniques that are in some of the scrolls, what I really want you to do is to follow the map to your mother's family training grounds and use them. But I warn you, don't go to your mother's family house. The only thing that will do is cause problems." "But why would that cause problems?" Naruto asked, wondering what could be so bad about going to a house that was probably empty. The answer that he received shocked him to the point that all he could do was stare at his father. "Well, it's because I don't know how to tell you this, so I'll just say it." Taking a deep breath, Arashi told his son something that he knew would upset the young man. "You see, while I'm sure that your mother's family noticed your last name, and I know that they knew about me and Arosha being together, they didn't know about you, and I am pretty sure that they still don't know about you," he said, searching his son for his reaction. Naruto looked at his father for several minutes before he finally realized what it was that the older man was saying. They were alive. His mother's family was still alive. Why? Why didn't I know I still had family? Why didn't they know about me? Why don't they know about me? He asked, shacking as the shock rolled over him. He had always thought that everyone in his family was dead, but now he knew differently, and it was as if someone had tried to cut part of his heart off. "I don't know, it was just something that me and your mother decided. Looking back now, I see that we shouldn't have done it that way, but I can't change the past, I'm sorry." Arashi's shoulders sagged as he thought about how hard he knew his son's life had been over the many years. Each time that he witnessed something happen to the teen, he had wanted to make it to where Naruto had a family to go to and to hug, and to have them hold him. But he wasn't able to undo the past, no one was. Naruto stared at the ground for several minutes before he finally decided that he believed that his father was indeed sorry for putting him through everything. Sighing, Naruto moved on to the next subject, already knowing what question all this was leading up to. And so, he asked the very question. "So how do I get them to see that I'm Mom's son?" he asked, looking at his father. "Well, firstly, you need to become strong, and the cage bunchin will help you do that. And secondly, you need to let people know who your parents are during the last part of the Chunin exams. But I warn you, it might give you a family, but it will also make your life more dangerous because it will let my old enemies know that you're my son, and that's going to cause a few problems," he said, looking down at the boy that stood before him. "But will the quick activation of your bloodline limit and some training while using cage bunchin? It shouldn't be all that bad. So what do you say? Want to learn about what you need to do so that you can finally have a family? Or would you rather go the easy route and not bother to let your enemies know just whose son you are?" After a moment in which Naruto spent by thinking on what his father had just asked him, the blonde-haired teen looked up at the older man with a smile plastered across his face. "I'm in." "Duh, how hard can it be anyways? So, what do I have to do to activate this bloodline thing anyways?" Naruto asked, looking quizzically at his father. Well, it's a rather complex jitsu that I really don't know how to do, but I did get to see it done by your mother once, if you give me a sec. Maybe I can bring up the memory and allow it to be performed on you instead of your cousin. Hold on a sec. It might take me a minute. Arashi said as he started trying to drag the memory up so that the jitsu in the memory could be performed on Naruto. Naruto blinked up at his father as he thought about what the man had just said. He said that Mom did this for my cousin. That means I have a cousin around my age. I wonder what they're like. I hope they don't hate me when they meet me, he thought, picturing in his head what the person might look like if they were a boy, and then doing the same thing in case his cousin is a girl instead. Knowing exactly what his son was thinking, Arashi rolled his eyes and went to work summoning up the memory that would hopefully unlock his son's bloodline limit. Naruto's thoughts of what his family could be like were interrupted as the scenery around him suddenly changed from being in the back of Sasuke's house to being inside a small black room with candles hanging high on the walls. The room also had seals covering every square inch from what Naruto could see. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to see the whole room. He still thought that it was one big seal. Standing off to the side of the room was an elderly man, his father Arashi, a young woman and a man that was holding her hand. Must be her husband. I bet they're my aunt and uncle, and that man maybe he's a family elder or even my grandfather. Naruto thought, looking the small group over and trying to memorize everything he could about them, finally catching sight of a woman and a small child of about 7 or 6 standing in the middle of the room. The child had short black-white hair and jade-green eyes with a dark tan complexion that made Naruto look at him for several moments. He had never seen anyone as tan as he was like this boy. After a few moments, Naruto let his eyes travel to the woman that was standing over the boy with her hands outstretched. The woman had long brown hair that was so untamed and wild that it seemed to take on a life of its own. She also had jade-green eyes, and her skin was a tan that almost mirrored Naruto's own. Looking at this woman, Naruto instantly knew exactly who she was. It was his mother. Naruto walked over to where the woman was standing, apparently performing a jitsu on the boy that stood before her. Looking up at his mom, he couldn't help but wish that he had had the chance to meet the woman. He wished more than anything that he could have grown up with her, and that she could be there for him when all the villagers were tormenting him when he was little. Sighing deeply, Arashi reluctantly brought his son back to the matters at hand by informing him that they needed to do the technique soon. He wasn't sure how much longer he had to help teach the boy before he woke up, and he did have a great deal to go through with him before that. Sighing, Arashi walked over to the boy and positioned him into the spot that the little kid was. Naruto stared in shock as he stepped right into the boy. What? Oh, right, this is only a memory. Guess things aren't solid here like they are in the forest, he thought, still looking up at his mother, trying to memorize everything he could before the time that the image would vanish. Naruto, this jitsu is supposed to activate your ability to use your family bloodline limit, but I'm not sure that it will actually do it seeing as this is only a memory. In short, I don't know if this will work. But if it doesn't, don't worry, you can still train and become stronger before the third and final part of the Chunin exams. Hopefully that will be enough to get them to see that you're part of their family. Anyways, I want you to stand still while your mother performs the jitsu. Whatever happens, do not move. Understand me, Arashi said, and asked as he moved away from the spot where Naruto and his mother's image now stood. Nodding his head at his father, Naruto braced himself for what was about to happen and willed himself not to move. Seeing that his son was ready, Arashi prepared to begin the memory. As the memory began, Naruto's mother started moving, going through seal after seal. Tiger, rat, horse, dragon, serpent, dragon, snake, tiger, dragon, tiger, semi-tiger, serpent, rat, dragon. Clap hands together. Bird, snake, sheep, horse, ox, tiger, ox, monkey, rabbit, rat, boar, bird, ox, horse, bird, tiger, dog, tiger, snake, ox, sheep, snake, pig, sheep, ox, monkey, bird, dragon, ox, horse, sheep, tiger, snake, horse, rabbit, bird, snake, horse, dog, snake, an. These hand seals were taken from the first half of every dragon jitsu, the cursed seal jitsu, and the reversal jitsu, so there is a reason why there are so many. The entire time that Arosha was performing the seals for the unsealing jitsu, an enormous amount of chakra started to build in the room, accumulating around Naruto. Or rather, it was accumulating around the boy that Naruto was currently standing in. I guess that's what it is technically. As time passed, more and more chakra filled the room until it was almost glowing with its own power. As Arosha moved, the only thing that Naruto could do was stare up at the now animated figure of his mother, the very woman that he had wished to know all his life. As the minutes paused, the chakra in the room started to enter Naruto's body, slowly filling him with a dull ache that slowly started to grow. After several more minutes, the pain became almost unbearable for the young blonde ninja, but remembering his father's words, he didn't move his body a single inch. If this is what it takes to get a family, then I'll do it, even if it cost me my life, he thought as he tried to stay as still as possible. As Naruto felt the pain increase once again, he couldn't help but wonder how a child of 6 or 7 was actually able to deal with the pain that was now coursing through his body. It was almost unbearable for him, and he was about twice the little boy's age. Fighting the pain, he made sure that he wasn't going to move at all. Naruto gritted his teeth as he began to feel like he was about to pass out from the pain. The pain was still growing, and it was really beginning to become almost impossible for him to stand. It was almost a relief when he heard his mother say what had to be the words for the jutsu, and when she said it, he didn't even dwell on the sound of her voice because of the pain that he was currently feeling. Yuyume Doragon no Jitsu. An light and dark dragon technique, she shouted, causing all of the remaining chakra to fill the young blonde-haired ninja, successfully causing him to pass out. Yo, you do realize that it is kind of strange that you managed to pass out while you were passed out, said an annoying voice as he attempted to wake the young blonde up by continuously shaking him. I mean, it is kind of odd to pass out from pain in your own head. Ugh, Naruto said, trying to ignore the annoying pain in his head. It felt like someone took a large hammer to his head. Sighing, it took Naruto several moments before he realized just who it was that was talking to him. Sitting up quickly, Naruto looked around and came face to face with his father, the fourth Hokage Arashi. So that means it wasn't a dream? He asked, rubbing his head. Arashi shook his head, knowing full well what it was that his son was talking about. After several minutes in which he let his son recuperate from the aftershock of the jutsu that had been performed on him just moments before, Arashi felt that it was best to move on to the next topic that needed to be discussed. Okay, I know that you are probably not really feeling up to moving on to the next thing that I need to tell you, as well as teach you, but I think that it would be best if we move on anyways. There really isn't that much time before you wake up and return to the real world. And I don't know about you, but I would really rather not have you go off to the real world before I get a chance to give you some pointers on how to train, Arashi said, looking pointedly at the blonde boy. He knew that the boy was tired and probably hurt all over, but it wasn't as if they really had time to waste, which meant that it was time for him and the boy to begin a quick instruction on training while using the cage bushin. Naruto looked up at his father, really wishing for the first time in his life that his father would just disappear. He felt like crap and knew that training, or even just listening to his father explain something to him, would be more than he could actually deal with at that moment. Or at least he knew that it would be extremely difficult to listen to him, but that's almost the same thing, isn't it? He has to be kidding. It feels like I just got run over by a herd of wild horses, he thought, glaring at the older blonde-haired ninja that was currently looking down at him with an annoyingly happy smile on his face. I wish I could just knock that smile right off of his face, he thought, wishing that his own thoughts were even possible for him to go through with, but knowing that it was very unlikely to be able to fight a Hokage. Sighing deeply, the younger blonde ninja decided to do as the man said, seeing as he did know what he was talking about, even if he was as annoying as Sasuke could be sometimes. Fine, whatever, let's just get it over with, he said, still glaring at the man standing over him. Just because he was going to do this didn't mean that he had to like it. Sighing at his son's less than enthusiastic reaction, Arashi decided to just move on with the information that he needed to give the young ninja. After all, it wasn't like Naruto's reaction was really all that shocking. He had known that the teen wasn't going to be happy about having to move on after just having that much chakra shoved into his body in order to overload it, which incidentally was the only way to actually activate his family bloodline limit. Anyways, Arashi moved on to tell his son exactly what his son needed to know. Okay, brat, now as I was going to tell you, the Cage Bunshin no Jutsu has many different extra abilities that happen to make it one of the greatest moves that any given ninja could have. Well, not any given ninja, only ninjas with a rather large amount of chakra can use the technique. The point, however, isn't who can use the technique, but rather what you can use the technique to do, he said, pausing in order to add to the dramatic effect, which only actually succeeded in annoying the impatient teen. You see, the thing about the Cage Bunshin is that you can use it to learn things quite a bit faster. However, it should not be used for this lightly. What I mean to say is that for every clone you use to train, you actually train that many times more than normal. This means that with 10 clones, you train 10 times faster than normal. The drawback is that when you use the cage bunchin to train, you end up get more existed much more quickly than normal, and you will also need to spend more time recuperating. Yes, even with the Kyuubi in you, the time that you would need to relax will still be more than it usually would be. So whatever you do when you train with it, make sure that it's only when you absolutely need to get a lot stronger in a short period of time, and also make sure that you don't do it just for normal training. Meaning it's only to be used when something, or rather someone you care about, is hurt or in danger of losing their lives. Understood. After he had finished, Arashi waited patiently for his son to answer his question. Naruto thought on what his father had said for several minutes before he finally answered. Okay, I get it. I can't use it all the time, just when I really need to, at least when training is involved and not a real mission or battle. Right, he said, looking at the ground while thinking of what his father had said. He understood what the man had said to him, and he would do what he asked, but he wasn't sure if it really changed anything. He didn't usually use the cage bunchin in his training to begin with, so what was his father trying to get at? Okay, I get all that, but why are you telling me all of this? It doesn't really change anything. I don't really use the cage bunchin when I train to begin with, he said, looking up at his father in order to see if he understood what he was talking about. He had come to understand that most people didn't understand the things that he said. Nodding, Arashi continued to explain what he actually wanted to tell his son. You're right, it wouldn't make much of a difference if that was all I was going to tell you, that is. You see, what I was going to tell you is that while you shouldn't do a lot of training with the cage bunchin owing to the repercussions it can have on your body, you can use it to read as many books as you can. What I mean to say is that you really should use it in order to become smarter. Don't get me wrong, you're my son and I'll always love you as well as be proud of you, but your intelligence isn't that great at the moment. Though you do show a great deal of potential. So in other words, I'm telling you to make several clones and read up on the different aspects of various techniques. Get it? Naruto looked at his father for several minutes before he finally understood everything that the man had been trying to tell him. His father had just given him a way to become smarter, and even he knew that it was a big deal. Everyone knew that he wasn't that smart, and finding a way to help fix that would make things a lot easier for him in the long run. Nodding his head, Naruto told his father that he understood, and would try to do as his father asked in order to make himself a better ninja. Sighing, Arashi knew that the time was coming to close, and that the two only had a few minutes to talk to each other before they would be forced to part for the time being, as Naruto would go back out into the real world and continue the exam that he was currently participating in. The two men talked for several hours about random things, including how Arashi met Naruto's mother, which actually involved the woman beating the living daylights out of him. But he wasn't about to tell his son that. Not even under threat of another Kyuubi attack if it came to that. The two of them also talked about what it was like for Arashi when he first became a ninja. They talked about his teachers and the different things he was able to learn from them. When Naruto heard his father mention a perverted ninja that wrote naughty adult books, Naruto instantly thought of his sensei Kakashi and asked if the books were called Ika Ika Paradise. Upon finding out that they did, Naruto quickly told the man about his sensei, which in turn shocked Arashi, seeing as he was the one that taught Kakashi all those years ago. After finding out that Kakashi had been Arashi's student and was Naruto's teacher, the two of them started to compare notes about the different things that the evil, perverted, and always late ninja had done in the past, which usually always ended with the white-haired ninja reading from random books that contained unmentionable things. While talking about the perverted ninja, Naruto asked his dad how to perform 1,000 years of pain, which made the older ninja smile and laugh as he informed him that he was in fact the very person that had created the technique. You made that thing. What the hell? He used that on me, you know, and it hurt. Why would you make such a painful jutsu? Naruto asked, glaring at the man that was currently rolling around on the ground in a fit of laughter. Well, I got bored one day and decided that it would be a fun prank to pull on someone. It's not that hard to do, actually. All you really have to do is mold up as much chakra in your hands, then send your opponent flying in a huge wave of pain. He said while still laughing. He could just picture the look on the boy's face when it had been performed on him. It was one of the funniest things that he had ever come up with, and he was glad to see that it was still used after so many years. After the two ninjas talked about the painful technique, Naruto and Arashi moved on to other topics, such as what he should do if he got caught at his mother's family training ground, which was simply, as Arashi put it, run like hell. The fact that his father, the fourth Hokage, thought that he should run made it clear to Naruto that the group wasn't someone to deal with. Even Arashi was scared of them. After a while, they two of them started talking about the third Hokage. So when you see him next, you might want to mention something about meeting me. Oh, I almost forgot, when you see him next, just tell him to give you the keys to my vault. I want you to buy as many books with the money in there as you can, plus a whole new wardrobe. No son of mine is going to dress like that, he said, looking at Naruto's clothing as he spoke. The kid needs to get better clothing if he ever wants to get a girlfriend. Plus, when he's on missions, it's like a big sign that says, "Here I am," or something. I bet he doesn't even realize it, he thought, rolling his eyes at the look of indignation on his son's face. What's wrong with my clothes? I think they're cool, he said, glaring up at the man above him. Sighing, Arashi decided that the best plan for this was simply to explain to his son the points of why it is bad for a ninja to wear that much orange, and not to mention the whole thing about a girlfriend. He didn't think his son would be very comfortable with them talking about that. Well, you see, if you're in the middle of a forest and trying to get away from an enemy ninja and you're wearing orange, you kind of stick out. It's like painting a target on your back and asking archers if they want to practice. It's just not a good idea for a ninja to wear a lot of orange, he said, using his power over the dreamscape to show his son just what he was talking about. Sighing deeply, Naruto hung his head, knowing that his father was right and that he really needed to change his look in order to work better as a ninja. Okay, I guess you're right, but that doesn't mean that I have to like it. I'll change my clothes when I can. Okay, he said, looking up into his father's face to see that he was pleased with that answer. When Arashi was satisfied that his son would indeed change his clothes to better suit him as a ninja, he quickly changed the subject, hoping that he would be allowed to have a few more minutes with his son before the time would finally end. Unfortunately for him, his wish was not granted. Only 7 minutes passed before Naruto started to feel a tug from behind his navel that signaled him and Arashi that their time was about to end. Sighing deeply, Arashi told his son goodbye. Well, remember what I said about everything, the vault, training, and especially the clothing, he said as his son started to fall backwards into darkness. I'll remember. When will I see you again? Naruto shouted, wanting to spend a little more time with his dad. He had spent so many years without one that now that he finally had one, he didn't want to let him go. Soon, very soon, I promise, Arashi said, hoping that his son heard his words as he faded from the dreamscape. That's right, keep running, fatty, Aku said as he watched the large teen start to walk away from the fight. Ino couldn't believe it. For once in her life, luck was moving in her direction. If it hadn't been for those few words from the sound idiot, they might have had a chance. Ha, you've messed up big time now. Just wait and see what Chaoji does to you now, she thought, smirking in triumph at the man that had just tried to test destiny and lost. There was no way the man was going to survive Chaoji's attack, especially not after the fatty comment. Chaoji stopped in his tracks as his ears registered the words that the sound ninja had said. If he didn't know any better, he would have said that the man had actually called him fat. Did I just hear that right? What did that guy just say? He asked as flames leapt from his eyes in anger. I am not fucking fat, I'm fluffy. When I was fat, this is what I would say to people whenever someone tried to piss me off by calling me fat or something. So, fluffy it is. Zaku smiled as he watched the man before him. I said, keep on running, fatty, it ain't like you can win anyway. Turning around, Chaoji fixed his fiery eyes on the man that had stupidly called him fat. That's it. I'm going to kick your scrowny little butt, he shouted, going into the familiar stance of his meat tank jutsu. Chaoji quickly transformed into a large round ball, almost doubling in size and weight. Pulling his head, arms, and legs into his ball of a form, he then began to spin as fast as he could, aiming himself right at the jerk that had just called him fat. Zaku stared in shock as the large teen turned into a large ball and started heading for him. He never thought that someone would actually use being fat as an attack. Coming out of his shock, he moved into possession to use his wind sonic tunnels to shove the large ball that was coming at him into a different direction. Unfortunately, the attack didn't work, and the ball kept moving towards him at an unbelievable speed. Unfortunately, as he attempted to jump out of the way, he tripped and was unable to get back up in time to avoid the attack. All the rookies that were in the area, except for Shikamaru and Ino, stared at the ball in shock as it ran over and nearly crushed the sound genin. As the ball crashed into the vastly smaller man, the sound of crunching could be heard as the man's bones were crushed by the massive ball. Soon after, the slightly gargled sound of a scream could be heard as well. "AN, don't worry, I actually feel bad for this guy so he isn't going to die in my fic." Looking on in slight surprise, the large group of ninjas quickly attacked the sound man that still remained in the fight. Naruto awoke to a rather nasty bump on his head, owing to the fact that Choji and Shikamaru had just waked him on the noggin with a large club trying to wake him up. With his shouts of pain, both boys knew that they had been successful and that the blonde-haired ninja was now fully awake. What the hell?" Naruto shouted as he sat bolt upright. Looking around to see what had smacked him in the head so unceremoniously, Naruto spotted the two that were looking at him with clubs in their hands. "Bought time you woke up. You missed the fight, though. You slept through the whole thing," Shikamaru said as he looked down at the blonde with a lump on his head, which was roughly the size of a small globe by now. "Troublesome," he added as an afterthought. How can one idiot be that bad, sleeping while his whole team nearly gets killed? He thought as Naruto puffed up, most likely to begin yelling at them for the rude awakening that they had just bestowed upon him. "What the hell? What fight? What did I miss?" Naruto asked quickly as he jumped to his feet, wondering what could have possibly gone on while he was knocked out. Looking at the damage that surrounded him, Naruto immediately thought of the snaky bastard that had attacked him and his friends. "Where is he? Where's that snake guy? Did Sasuke beat him? How long have I been out?" he asked, still looking around at the damage all around him. This time it was the blonde Kanachi Ino that spoke up. "What are you talking about? Like always, just being a weirdo. I don't know how long you've been out, but chill, the fight is already over," she said, looking over at the boy and rolling her eyes as she saw that he was about to puff up again. "Don't even start with me," she added, causing Naruto to subside enough to simply grumble in her general direction. Sighing deeply, Naruto looked at the form that was currently sitting in front of the blonde girl. "Sakura, what happened to your hair?" he asked, catching sight of the missing locks on her head. Sakura was looking at her teammate as though she couldn't believe her eyes. "Naruto, you're awake," she said, still looking at him. "I thought he was a goner, but he survived. He didn't die. Maybe that means that Sasuke won't die either." "What am I saying? Of course he won't die. If Naruto could survive a fight with that guy, then so can Sasuke." She thought, her hopes growing at the thought of her beloved being okay. "Yeah, how long have I been out? What happened?" he asked, looking at his teammate as she set about explaining to him what had happened. Apparently the sound ninjas had attacked, beaten Sakura and Lee, who had come to her rescue, and then had gotten the snot beaten out of them when they called Choji fat. And after that, the one with all the bandages wrapped all around him saved his teammates at the last moment of the fight by offering up the scroll to Sakura and grabbing his friends and running. Unfortunately, that meant that the still only had one scroll, as Naruto soon found out that the snake man had taken the one that they had had. "What? You mean that forked-tongue freak took our scroll? What the hell? I can't believe this. That means that we're still a square one," he said, pulling at his hair as he walked around. After several more moments of shouting, Naruto and everyone else in the vicinity were shocked to hear a slightly rough and raspy voice say, "Naruto, just shut up. Well, figure out something. See explanation 1 for this." Looking over at the location of the voice, the entire group, except for Neji who was still in the bushes, froze in shock as they saw Sasuke sitting up. "Sasuke!" shouted 2 feminine voices as the said 2 girls ran over to the raven-haired ninja. Glaring at the 2 overly happy fangirls, Sasuke looked over at Naruto and noticed something that the others apparently hadn't. What happened to his eyes?" he thought, looking at the blonde more intently. "His chakra's the same, but his eyes. They're different somehow, the pupils. The pupils are stars." He, though, looking at the other, wondering what the hell was going on. He was also wondering why the others hadn't noticed his eyes. See explanation 2 for this. After a moment more of trying to come up with an explanation, Sasuke decided that the best thing to do was waiting until the team was alone and ask then. Apart from not wanting the other team to know something that might be an advantage, something he seriously doubted. He also wanted to watch Naruto for a little while longer in order to make sure that it was really his teammate and not another imposter that was just after their scroll. Or just after one of them. While Sasuke was busy trying to figure out what was going on, Sakura and Ino were having another argument over the raven-haired teen while Ino tried to fix the pink-haired Kunoichi's hair. "Like I'm about to lose to you, billboard head," Ino said as she slowly trimmed Sakura's hair, making it as even as possible. "You'll lose because I have no intent on giving up Sasuke to you, now or ever." Sakura replied, still smiling, knowing that while they were both being mostly serious, they had both just patched up a major tear in their friendship. It had actually been patched up the moment that Ino had come to Sakura's aid. Even though they were still fighting over a guy, she had come to her rescue like when they were. Then again, they might have patched up some of their little problems, but that didn't stop them from taunting each other over Sasuke. So you might as well give up because there is no way that he will ever pick you over me. He knows me so much better and we've been together for a while now. She said while smiling. It wasn't a complete lie. They have been together for a long time now, but only as teammates. But she didn't plan on telling that to the girl. You've what? Ino shrieked as she clipped a rather large portion of pink locks off of Sakura's head. Looking at the large handful of hair for the space of a sec, Ino threw it over her shoulder and looked back at Sakura. After a moment in which she realized two things, one that Sakura was bluffing, and two that the girl had a big patch of hair that was now missing, Ino promptly started laughing. The big forehead girl was now the big bald forehead girl. Turning around to see what was making Ino laugh like that, especially after what she had just said, Sakura decided that it must just be that Ino thought that the idea of her being with Sasuke was funny. Glaring at the blonde, Sakura got up and walked over to her team and told them that she was ready to go. Not able to do anything but gawk at the girl, Naruto and Sasuke quickly followed her as she left the little clearing. After the pink-haired girl was out of earshot, the remaining group promptly started laughing until each had fallen over and was rolling around on the ground in laughter. As Team 7 moved slowly through the forest, two of the members still having not fully recovered, they didn't notice that they were being followed by a silver-haired ninja with round spectacles. So, he managed to not fall prey to the seal. Orochimaru-sama won't like this. He thought as he slowly and quietly shadowed the three teens through the forest. Start flashback. Kabuto had been following the group for a while now. After he had entered the training ground, he quickly sent his team up to the tower and went to find where the raven-haired target and his team were. It didn't take him long to find them owing to the fact that he could hear the loud-mouthed one from all the way to his side of the grounds. When he finally caught up to where the pink-haired, raven-haired, and blonde-haired group was, he found that he was a little late, seeing as his master was already in the midst of fighting the group. Smiling to himself, he didn't think that it would take that long for him to knock the inter-group down, seeing as Orochimaru was a legendary Sannin after all. To his shock, however, a wild yellow streak flew by and headed straight the Uchiha group. What the hell? I thought that the yellow flash was dead. Orochimaru-sama made sure of that with the Kuibai. He thought frantically as he searched for the face of Arashi, only to find that annoying blonde boy instead. But I thought, how can he move like the Yondaime? As he watched in shock as the blonde actually managed to stop and kill the snake that Orochimaru had summoned, he realized that the blonde-haired ninja was glowing with a demonic power that anyone who had been at the final battle could easily remember. Wait a sec. He must be the Kuibai boy. That explains the speed, he thought as he watched the battle unfold before him. In the end, Orochimaru managed to knock the blonde out, and also managed to give the cursed seal to the Uchiha boy, before vanishing off to take care of other business. End flashback. Well, Kabuto thought, he might have managed to keep from being pulled into the power of the seal, but no one can fight it forever. As Naruto and Team 7 continued on through the forest toward the tower, they group hoped that another team would come across their path. And hopefully, if a team did come across them, that team would have the scroll that they still needed. After a while, Naruto caught a glimpse of something moving on his left. Turning quickly, he threw a kuni at the movement and froze in shock. Sakura and Sasuke stopped and turned at the motion as well. What the group saw shocked the hell out of them. "Ah, my bad," Naruto said, a complete lack of words hitting him for the first time in his life as he stared at what must have been a 30 or 40-foot-long millipede. After the initial shock wore off, Sakura screamed in horror at the many-legged thing before her. What the heck, that thing is huge," she said as she backed away from the said huge thing. Couldn't resist. Sasuke looked at the millipede with annoyance. How did he see that before I did? He asked, not liking that he had been outdone by the guy he considered to be a loser. Once the team got over their shock at seeing the huge creature, they began walking once more. It only took them another 20 minutes to figure out that they were walking in circles as they once again passed the large bug that was pinned to the tree by a kuni. "We're going around in circles," Naruto shouted, pulling at his hair as he did so. Sasuke and Sakura looked at Naruto in annoyance. It is really annoying when he says things that the other two have already figured out, but then again, it wasn't as though he had figured it all out. The others had. Idiot, we're not going in circles. We're trapped in someone's genjutsu, Sakura shouted in frustration. After a few more moments in which Naruto and Sakura got into a yelling match, in which Sakura won by cheating, the group decided it would be best to try and get their captors to come out and fight them now instead of waiting until they were too tired to actually do any fighting. Hey, get out here and fight USYOUJERKS, Naruto shouted while running around in the little clearing. Rolling their eyes at their teammates' antics, the other two genin prepared themselves for the battle that would undoubtedly begin soon. Sure enough, not 2 minutes passed before the enemy ninjas attacked, and who would have guessed it? They were sound ninjas. You guys need to find someone else to stalk, Sasuke said as he activated his birthright, the Sharingan. The 3 sound ninjas merely laughed at the raven-haired teen before they were suddenly surrounded by hundreds of clones that look exactly like the 3 of them. There had to be about 100 of each of the sound nins. Damn, there's too many of them. Which ones are the real ones, Sasuke thought. The thing about the Sharingan is that even though you can figure out most techniques when using it, it only figures out and copies a move. It doesn't tell the user which person is real when they are all moving exactly alike, and at the same time. While Sasuke was trying to figure out which of the ninjas were real, Sakura was busy trying to figure out an escape route for her and her teammates. Is it me, or will that girl never learn to fight instead of running? Now, like always, while the other two of Team 7 were busy actually thinking things through, even if one of those things were something only a chicken would think about, Naruto had already started to run into the fray of the battle. It didn't take long for Naruto's teammates to join him. Sakura was afraid he'd get himself killed, and Sasuke wasn't about to let Naruto show him up. After several moments of fighting, the group decided that it was pointless to continuously fight the group. It was obvious that they were just trying to tire them out. After they realized this, they handed over the battle to Naruto, seeing as he could summon up a bunch of cage bushins, and they could save their strength for the real battle. Naruto continued battling the sound ninjas for over 2 hours. After all that time, they still didn't seem to be getting tired from using the stupid clone jutsu that they seemed to favor. Sighing deeply, Naruto tried desperately to figure out something that would get them to chance their strategies, or something that might give him an advantage and help him take the group out quickly. Unfortunately, nothing came to mind no matter how hard he thought about it. After several more minutes of fighting, he was finally starting to get really tired. When the sound ninjas saw this, they jumped down from the treetops right in front of Naruto and the fake Sakura and Sasuke. Hashina, see, I told you guy it would work. They aren't that tough, said one of the sound nins as they slowly moved toward the group of rookie genin. Yeah, that was way easier than I thought, and we still have plenty of time to get to the tower, another one said to the first. Before the third sound nin could put his 2 cents in, Naruto rushed forward in a last attempt to end the battle without having to have Sasuke come and take all of the glory. The tallest of the sound nins was so shocked at Naruto rushing him that he didn't move out of the way in time, and ended up with Naruto shoving a kuni into his left arm while knocking him over, successfully pinning the man to the ground below. Naruto raised his fist, preparing to punch the man out. But before he could manage it, the Pine Ninja's teammates came over and grabbed Naruto by both arms and hauled him off of their teammate. Shit, you little freak. Did you really think we would just stand by while you tried to kill our teammate? You got to be kidding me, said the ninja that had made the comment about the battle being too easy. Yeah, you little punk, did you really think we were so weak that a little brat like you could take us out? Yeah, right, said another one while laughing. Naruto glared at the two that were holding him. Great, I'm stuck. Now Sasuke's going to come and rescue me and I'll have to listen to Sakura saying how great he is. Naruto thought in annoyance. No, I won't let that happen. I won't be Sasuke's shadow forever. Not anymore. What? Naruto growled as he started channeling his power, making it grow as much as he could. The amount of chakra he let loose was enough to send his captors flying. The explosion of chakra caused said captors to fly into nearby trees. Unfortunately, they recovered quickly. Naruto was breathing hard when the wave of energy finally subsided. It had taken a lot out of him to do that wave, and it hadn't activated anything that he had wanted it to. It did, however, make him feel as though he were about to pass out. Looking at the men that had just been flung into the trees, Naruto couldn't believe his eyes as they each started to get up, if a little shakily. Growling one more time, he started to turn and move toward them, only to fall flat on his face. Glaring up at them, Naruto was once more infuriated as he saw Sasuke and Sakura jump out of the trees. Sakura went to help him up while Sasuke once again saved the day with a few well-placed wires and several cutons. "I thought you said you could do it on your own, doob," Sasuke said with a smirk as he slowly walked over to them. Naruto growled again at Sasuke's remark. He was really getting tired of the man-guy in front of him and couldn't wait to wipe the smirk right of his face. The two continued to glare at one another for several minutes. Sakura kept looking back and forth between them for a couple minutes before rolling her eyes and thinking, "Boys." Sighing deeply, she decided that she would have to be the one to bring the two back out of their little glaring contest and back into the real world. "Ahem," she said, faking a cough to get their attention, which had very little effect at all. "Cacha, what was that? I might be coughing to death and they don't even look," inner Sakura thought as the glaring contest continued. "I said EHEM," she shouted, effectively dragging the two out of their own thoughts this time. The two boys looked at her for several minutes before finally deciding that it was time for them to move on and head on to the tower. Sasuke sighed as he turned around and went to one of the men that were currently knocked out not too far away. Bending over, he searched for the scroll that he knew was on the guy, having glimpsed it with his Sharingan earlier. Smirking as he pulled the scroll out of the guy's kunai pouch, Sasuke tossed it to Sakura and headed on toward the tower in the distance, not knowing that someone was watching them the entire time. Naruto was still pretty pissed at Sasuke and Sakura when they reached the tower several hours later. He was mad at Sasuke because he always had to show him up on everything, and the bastard was currently rubbing it in as he would constantly turn back to Naruto and smirk at him as though he would always need people to save him. That was the reason why he had walked in front for the last half hour. He was also mad at Sakura because she had hit him and yelled at him for brooding while calling Sasuke so cool and so hot, when he was usually doing the same thing. The fact that she was always hitting him for doing stuff that Sasuke did never really hit him until they entered the forest, and it was starting to really piss him off. Sighing deeply, Naruto and the gang walked into the tower only to be greeted by a big empty room with doors all around them. Looking around, the three wondered what it was that they were supposed to do now that they had arrived at the tower. No one had really given them instructions on what to do at this point. While Sakura looked around for some clues as to what they needed to do, Naruto and Sasuke simply settled for glaring at each other, as though it was the other one's fault that they didn't know what they were supposed to do. Doob. Team. Doob. Team. D-U-B-E. T-I-M-E. The two boys suddenly growled at the same time and were about to lung at one another when Sakura's voice startled them both. "Knock it off," she shouted, glaring at both of them, but more at Naruto because she just knew that he had been the one to start it. "Naruto, stop picking fights with Sasuke-kun. God, you're so childish. And by the way, you two, I think I know what to do." She said the last part as an afterthought, though it got the boys' attentions more than anything else she had said to them. Glaring once more at each other, the two walked over to where Sakura was. As they got closer, they found that she was looking at an old tapestry on the wall that had a rather long speech sewn into it. Reading it over, the three genuine of Team 7 all got an idea of what to do next. Sakura and Sasuke immediately took out the scrolls and opened them together. After a moment, smoke started to come out of each scrolls. Sasuke looked at his for a moment before he suddenly realized just what was about to happen. "Sakura, throw the scroll," shouted as he threw his a slight distance away from him and got ready to fight whatever was going to come out of it. Sakura did as she was told and backed away to prepare for it too. Naruto was slightly confused, however, and didn't get ready until the smoke was almost cleared. A few moments later, Sakura and Sasuke were both shocked when a cry of "Uruka-sensei" erupted in the large room. "Hi, Naruto, nice to see you two." The Chunin laughed while he was nearly crushed under Naruto's bear hug. "Uruka-sensei, what are you doing here? Are you the next examiner?" he asked, releasing the older man from his death grip. The others in the group rolled their eyes at the dumb question. Uruka wasn't a Jonin, so he couldn't be one of their examiners. Sighing deeply, the others gathered around Uruka in order to hear what he had to say. "No, Naruto. I'm here to congratulate you on finishing the second part of the exam and to tell you I'm sorry. I should have had more faith in you. I thought that you guys were too young and wouldn't be able to handle the exams. I guess I need to learn that you guys are growing up, and to not assume that you're still just a bunch of kids. You're real ninjas, and I'm proud of you," he said, looking at Team 7 with a father-like expression, smiling to show how proud he was of them. Naruto couldn't hold it in anymore. He just had too much emotion built up in him to just sit there and not say what was on his mind. "Uruka-sensei, don't worry about me. I'm going to be the Hawkeye someday. A little test like this isn't going to slow me down. I'm not just some kid anymore, so don't worry. I'll be okay," he said, shouting each word with more emotion than anything they had ever heard before. Naruto's two teammates simply smirked at his outburst. It was exactly how each of them felt. Sasuke knew that he could beat anyone in the exam, and after Sakura's battle with the Sound Ninjas, she had a whole new determination to spur her on in her fights. She refused to lose to anyone ever again. Well, maybe Sasuke, but that was a different story altogether. Uruka took a minute to look at the three genin before him. They were each growing up, and it was time for him to step aside and see what they could each do. Well, then all I can say is congratulations, you advanced to the next round. As the entire Rookie Nine gathered along with several other genin teams, Naruto couldn't help but look around at the others in the area. He couldn't believe it. Out of all the teams that had entered into the exams, most of the teams left were from Konoha. And what's more was that all of the Rookie Nine were still there. It made it obvious that the rookies were a lot better than what most people would have been at that point in time, and it also showed just how powerful Konoha was. Wow, yeah, this year we rock. Naruto thought as he took one more look around. The same thought was running through the head of the Sadome Hawkeye. He couldn't believe that all the rookies had come out of this exam with their lives. It was extremely shocking, and it made him prouder than he had ever been before in his life. Sighing deeply, Saratobi turned to the genins that were currently lined up in front of him waiting for his directions of what to do next. It's hard to believe that there are so many left after the second test. He thought, looking around one more time at the group in front of him. And so many of them are rookies. Sighing deeply, the Hawkeye finally started to explain what he wanted to. Unfortunately, he was interrupted before he even began to speak. "All right, now pay attention. The Lord Hawkeye is about to explain the third exam, so listen up," shouted Anko, successfully getting the group's attention, though it wasn't really necessary to begin with. "Lord Hawkeye, they're all yours," she shouted, smirking as she walked away from the group to stand in line with the other Jonins. "First, before I tell you what the first exam entails, I feel that I must explain what the purpose of this exam is. This exam is to he started, but was cut off once more." "What do you mean the purpose of this exam?" Ino asked, voicing the question that was going through everybody's minds. "Yeah, isn't this exam just to get us to the next level of ninja?" shouted Kiba. "Troublesome, all of this is just troublesome," said a all-too-familiar bored voice. Now, calm down. It is true that this exam is in part a means to further your careers, but that is not all that it is meant for. This exam is also a display of power between the great ninja villages. All the ninja villages send their Chunin hopefuls to this tournament in the hopes of proving that they have the greater power, which then gets their respective villages that much more recognition, earning more jobs for them to do throughout the year. If it was not for these exams, then the villages would not prosper, and many would be out of jobs and starve, forcing us to once again go to war with each other for various reasons. That is what I wanted to explain to you here today. This exam is very important because it will help the fighters' villages get more missions throughout the year, therefore earning more money to support its people. The Hawkeye stated, looking over the entire group once more to make sure that his words had sunk in before he decided to move on. "Now before we begin, I think that he started, but was once again cut off by someone. This time, however, it was by Genma. Lord Hawkeye cough, with all due respect, I believe that as the third examiner I should be the one to explain things," he said, trying to sound as respectful as he could while still trying to hold back most of his coughing. Sighing deeply for what seemed like the 100th time that day, the Hawkeye nodded his head and moved back to let Genma speak. "All right. Cough, listen up. Because there are so many of you, we need to have a cough preliminary," he said, getting slightly worried looks from everyone as he couldn't stop coughing. "What?" Kiba shouted, getting angry because of all the curve balls the examiners kept throwing at them. "Why didn't we already cut down enough people already? Can't we just move on to the main events?" he exclaimed. "Yeah, haven't we been through enough already? You can't keep doing stuff like this to us. It's not fair," screamed a rather pissed off Ino. It was really starting to get on her nerves the way people kept throwing in obstacles when they really didn't need them. She was tired, damn it, and this was going to be so much harder with her half passed out. "Hey, we just got done with the forest. We're tired, you know. Couldn't you give us a little bit of a break before we start fighting again? It's already getting dark." Sakura shouted, adding her complaints to the steadily growing numbers. Genma could only frown in annoyance. If they had just let him finish, they would have known that they get a slight reprieve from everything for a short time. "Calm down now. Cough, calm down. I didn't say that it was going to be right away. You get 2 days to cough, rest up, or do cough, last-minute training before I make you cough, all fight one another," he said, coughing once more. At the end of this statement, there were cheers from the surrounding group of genin. They all were very happy that they could get a slight reprieve from fighting. Well, almost everyone, the only people not celebrating were the sound nins and Gara. "Now, cough, I suggest that you cough, all take the next 2 days and train cough or rest. Preferably rest due to the fact, cough, that you will need it for the upcoming cough fights. Dismissed. Cough," and with that, the group of genin all departed to the halls in search of rooms to sleep in for the night. Unfortunately for Team 7, their search for rooms was impeded by a smiling Kakashi. "Yo," he said, giving them his patented happy eye. The group looked at him for the span of a minute before Naruto's temper finally acted up. He was still pretty pissed from having to be saved by Sasuke earlier. "What now? Can't you see we're tired? What do you want?" he said, sounding just as angry as he felt. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he actually felt sorry for yelling at Kakashi-sensei, but it was only a small part of his mind, and it was very far back from the top of his head. In the end, he didn't really care that much at the moment. "Naruto, don't be such a jerk," Sakura screamed, punching him on top of his head, only to get a rather menacing glare and a flash of slight killer intent. The fact that Naruto had just showed some killer intent alone shocked the entire group. They had never known Naruto to be that pissed off, and even more shocking was the fact that he'd been directing it toward Sakura, something that none of them would have ever thought possible. "Damn it, why do you always hit me? Even when me and Team do the same thing, you praise him for it and hit me for it. Kami. You are such a hypocrite. You only treat him so great because you think he's the stud of Konoha. I'm out of here," he shouted, storming off in the direction they had been heading into in the first place. The group looked after him, wondering what in the world had just happened. They didn't know what it was that he was really pissed off about, but they did know that everything he said, he meant. Sakura looked down at the floor in shock and guilt. She knew Naruto was right to some extent. She was always treating him like he was just some annoying person that she couldn't be bothered with. She also treated Sasuke better than him for the same things that he did. She knew it was wrong, but she just couldn't help it. It was a force of habit. Looking after Naruto, all Sasuke could do was glare at the blonde and hope that the Baka's words might help him lose one of his fangirls, or at least tame her if that was at all possible. Kakashi sighed and looked at the other two in front of him, making it a mental note to talk to Naruto later. He knew that the boy was upset about something, but what he wasn't sure about. Sighing deeply, Kakashi got the other's attention by coughing deeply, much like Genma. "Cough," he said, smiling when the other two looked at him with slight alarm. "I think you should come with me, Sasuke. We need to take care of the mark as soon as possible. It is one of the reasons why everyone gets 2 days of rest. We want you at your best for the fights now, don't we?" he said, giving Sakura and Sasuke his most serious eye. Looking slightly annoyed, Sasuke followed Kakashi as he led him to a room in the basement that was covered in seals. Unfortunately, the two ninjas never realized that they were being followed. Naruto made his way to his room, wondering if there was a being out there that thought his life was as funny as hell, because it serenely wasn't for Naruto. Naruto's current mood was because he found that he was situated in the same room as one of the most annoying beings in the world. Kabuto. Apparently, all the guys were put into rooms in one hall, and the girls in another, and unfortunately, it was done alphabetically as well. And Kabuto's last name just happened to be Yuzuka, A.N. I don't know what his last name is, and seeing as I can't seem to find it, I just assumed that it was never mentioned on the anime, so, yeah, made it up. The pompous jerk kept talking to him about medical stuff and seemed to want to know an awful lot about Sasuke, and it was the Sasuke part that was getting on his nerves. Damn it, everyone seems to want to know about Sasuke. What about me? Doesn't anyone want to know about me? He shouted angrily, gritting his teeth in annoyance. Why doesn't anyone know I exist? He added sadly, walking into his room, happy when he found that the gray-haired teen wasn't anywhere to be found. Great. Now to sleep for a few hours, and then to go find Oji-san and beat the crap out of him, he said, changing out of his clothes and crawling under the covers. Bastard, not telling me who my own father is, he whispered, just before falling asleep. So Kabuto, how has the research been going? Orochimaru asked, looking at his bespectacled henchman. Good, Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto said, bowing slightly to the older ninja who was still in disguise. I have almost completed all the information that you requested on Sasuke. It appears that he is weak temperamentally speaking, he stated, knowing that the Snake Master would like this information a lot. Really. Truth be told, it was good news. But there was something else that he had to deal with apart from his future host. Earlier that day, one of his many spies came and spoke with him about something that was most troubling. It appeared that Akatsuki was on the move again, and that they were most interested in a Konoha ninja themselves. In fact, said ninja was the best friend of the very one that interested him. It seems we have another business to take care of Kabuto, he said, getting the young ninja's attention almost instantly. If Orochimaru thought there was something that was important enough to change subjects from Sasuke to, then it had to be something serious. Oh, he asked, looking intrigued. Yes, it seems that our old friends Akatsuki are acting up again. It seems that they want the Kyabi boy, he said offhandedly. With anyone else, this sort of attitude would have pissed Kabuto off, but he was used to it with Orochimaru. The man always talked as though everything was fine and nothing in the world could upset him. And what is it you want me to do about this, Lord Orochimaru? He asked, trying to be just as calm as the Snake Master, knowing that it would piss him off eventually. It always did. That is the question, isn't it? I think it would be best if we made sure that they couldn't get their hands on him. He said rather cryptically, You mean to bring him with us? Kabuto asked, already know what the answer was. Exactly, replied the Snake Master as he began to walk off, and I expect no mistakes. Meanwhile, in the Hokage's office. So you think there's a spy? Asked a voice from somewhere in the back of the room, causing many people to begin whispering. For the past half-hour, Saratobi had been talking to all of the Konoha Jonins that were still currently in Konoha and not out on some mission. Word had reached him almost immediately about Orochimaru's activities. Apparently, Enko had met up with her old teacher not too long after Naruto and Team 7 ran into him. It seems that the information came way too late, and that he had already put the cursed seal onto the raven-haired member of the team. It was sad. They were probably going to lose the last Uchiha in Konoha, but that didn't mean that they couldn't take down as many people as they could who were responsible for it. Yes, I believe there is a spy. That is the only explanation for how easily my old student managed to infiltrate Konoha. Things are not the same as they used to be. How else would he have learned the newer ways of the village or even the newer locations? It seemed to be more plain than I would have liked. Said the Hokage, eyed the group for a few minutes before continuing. I also think that the spy is a participant in the exams. If they are, then it is the perfect opportunity for them to get information about the capabilities of all the ninja villages and also to get closer to Sasuke. He said, sighing deeply, Does anyone have any idea of who it might be, or does anyone know of someone acting a bit oddly lately? Even if it's something as small as not eating the things that they usually do, or wearing their hair in a new fashion. The room was silent for less than a second before the one thing that the Hokage hated most was done. It must be Uzumaki. The Kyabi would take any chance it could to get its revenge on the village. Shouted someone yet again from the back of the room. It must be him. Yeah, we've let the demon live too long as it is. He must be the spy. Shouted another person, and unfortunately this one was standing next to a rather pissed of Uruka. A.N. Yes, Uruka is a secret Jonin. He's an ANBU if you must know, hint hint. In less than a second, Uruka had the man by the throat and on the floor, slowly choking the life out of him. The entire room froze in response. I'm going to tell you once and only once, Uruka whispered, squeezing just a bit harder to make sure the man got his point. Uzumaki Naruto and the nine-tailed fox are two very different beings, understand? The man, being stupid, simply glared daggers at the scared-nosed ninja currently trying to choke him to death. The group was silent for several more moments before someone finally stepped in. Or rather, someone finally asked for someone to step in. Kakashi, can't you do anything about this? He is your friend. I want to point out something so that there is no confusion. The man said friend, not boyfriend. As I've said before, this is a het-only fic. If you want a yai, then go read my other fic. Why? I see nothing wrong with what he's doing. The man did provoke him, as well as me. If you think I'm going to sit here and save a man that just insulted my student, he began before he was interrupted. The interruption was something that shocked the entire group into silence. It was abuse. I agree with Kakashi. He did accuse Uzumaki without a single reason. He also failed to realize, as I have myself in the past, that the boy is not the Kyabi and should therefore be treated like all others. Ebu said, walking over to where Uruka was still situated, trying to choke the life out of the little bastard that was still currently in his grasp. But that is not to say that we should simply let him be killed. Uruka should have to go to jail. You know how hard it is to find people stupid enough to teach at the academy. He added, bending over and prying the scared-nosed ninja's hands from around the idiot's neck. "Uruka, do you really want Naruto to lose you, the one person in this world who he considers family apart from the Saratobis?" Uruka looked at him for a few seconds before finally regaining his composure and standing up, straightening his vest in the process. "I'm sorry, Hokage-sama, please continue," he said, turning the attention back to the head of their village. Sighing deeply, the Sadom Hokage was happy that the situation had fixed itself without him needing to step in. It really was hard to find people willing to teach at the academy for some strange reason. The excuses usually consisted of something about crazy little children with pointy objects, whatever that meant. "Yes, I think we should continue before anything else happens," he said, taking a puff on his pipe. "Now, seeing as there is a lack of any evidence as to who it could be, I think that it is best that I tell you all to have an open mind, and to watch all the genin that are to be present in the tournament, as well as anyone else for that matter." Dismissed. Several hours later with Naruto. Naruto had awoken in the middle of the night, wondering what had woken him up. Once he finally managed to decide that it was impossible to figure it out, which took him a whole 2 seconds, he stood up and dressed before exiting the room into the hall. Once outside in the hall, Naruto proceeded to simply walk around for the next hour, wondering if there was anything that he could do to better prepare himself for the upcoming moshes, or simply how he could manage to awaken his bloodline limit. "There has to be something I'm missing. I mean, it can't be that hard to awaken it. Maybe I need to train more," he thought out loud, deciding that it was indeed the best option. Training never hurt anything and always helped him clear his mind. Maybe it could help wake up his abilities. Walking to the room that the Hokage had addressed the competing genin in earlier, Naruto walked to one of the walls and started walking up it before stopping halfway up. "Okay, 10 laps around the stadium should be good for a warm-up." And with that, he started running laps around the stadium on the walls. Once Naruto was done with his laps, he started doing some punch exercises as well as kick exercises, all while remaining on the wall in order to improve his chakra control. 3 hours passed as Naruto trained, and still the blonde ninja had no idea on how to use his supposed abilities. It was starting to seem more like a cruel joke than anything else. "Damn it. This isn't going to help. Why can't I do this? It shouldn't be that hard," he said, gritting his teeth. He had been training for over 3 hours and still didn't feel any closer to getting his bloodline limit activated. In fact, he didn't think that there was anything he could really do to activate it without someone's help. And that meant one thing. "I know, Oji-san might know what to do," he said, running off to find the third Hokage, knowing that if anyone could help it had to be him. Naruto was standing outside of the office when he heard that people inside talking about a possible spy among them. It didn't shock him when someone accused him of being the spy, but that didn't mean that he liked it either. Listening to as much as he dared, and wondering why there wasn't a guard around for once, Naruto finally decided that he had heard enough to know what was going on, and decided that he would go tell his friends. Unfortunately, there was only one problem with that plan. "So Naruto, what brings you out here of all places today?" said a voice from just inside the room that he was currently eavesdropping on. And Naruto knew very well whose voice that was. He usually heard it all the time telling him that he wasn't going to become Hokage if he couldn't climb a simple tree. Or say that if he couldn't climb the mountain with just his hands, then it would be a long time before he made Hokage. He knew Kakashi only said those things because he wanted to taunt Naruto into doing better, but that didn't stop him from getting angry whenever they were said. Kakashi-sensei, I was just He started trying to think of why he was there. Why did I come here? Oh, that's right. Dad said I should talk to Sarutobi Oji-san, he thought, snapping his head up and looking at Kakashi, who was now standing in an open doorway. Just as Naruto was about to open his mouth again, said Hokage spoke up. "That's all right, Naruto. I remember that you said you needed to speak with me. Please come in." Kakashi glanced behind him to see the Hokage looking in the direction of him and Naruto. It didn't exactly take a smart person to know that the Hokage wasn't asking for Naruto to come in, but was instead demanding it. It appeared that there was something that the man wanted to talk about with Naruto and didn't mind letting the other people in the room hear it. Then again, it was probably because he wanted more evidence to show that Naruto wasn't the spy. Sighing heavily, Kakashi and Naruto stepped into the room and moved slowly to the center of the space between the others in the room and the Hokage. "Yes, Oji-san," Naruto said, looking up at the old ninja that was still standing behind his desk, Said ninja happened to be smiling at him as though he was expecting him to be there sooner. Naruto knew that the man was very astute, but he also knew that the elderly Hokage was probably making the wrong assumption as to why he was there. And that might be a bad thing if he was supposed to talk about what he needed help with in front of the others in the room. "So what brings you to our little meeting this evening?" he asked, looking down at the blonde that stood before him. The image made him think back to a time long ago when another young blonde man came to speak to him about his nervousness of the competition. Shaking himself out of his thoughts, the elderly Hokage waited patiently for the young blonde ninja to begin speaking, all the while assuming that it had something to do with the Chunin exams. Several minutes passed by without anyone in the room saying a sing word, most people too scared of what Uruka might do to them if they said anything against the blonde boy, and the rest all interested in what a genin could possibly need to say that was so impotent that he would be listening at the door of such an important meeting. Naruto looked at the Hokage for several long minutes before he finally managed to get up the courage to say what he had come to say. "I know," he said, looking blankly at the elderly man before him, hoping that that little phrase would be enough to let the elderly man know what he had come for. He was hoping that he wouldn't have to say anything else, because he didn't think that it would be a very good idea to let the rest of the people know what it was that he knew. If they found out about who he was, or rather who his father was, it could lead to a whole lot of problems for everyone. Considering all the enemies his father had, it could actually cause a war if he wasn't careful about who he told the information to. And then there was also the fact that there was a psychopathic maniac running around that was after people with good bloodline limits. Couple that with the fact that his father had said that he wasn't even really that sure about what his mother's family abilities were, and it could lead to something very bad happening to him, or worse, those he cared about. Several minutes passed without anyone saying anything. The silence was so thick that it was almost tangible. It was clear that everyone was confused as to what he was talking about, and that was a bad thing, because everyone included that Hokage. "Damn it, Oji-san, use that brain of yours, what is it that I might know? Come on, it isn't that difficult," he thought, gritting his teeth, knowing what was most likely going to come next at this rate. Sarutobi looked down at the blonde for several minutes, wondering what it could possibly be that he was talking about. Is he talking about the spy? Does he know who it is? No, if he did then he would have just come out and said it. Then what? "You know," he asked dumbly, blinking several times. "Yes, I know, as in I know," Naruto said, stressing the word no in order to try and get his meaning across. "I am sorry, but I am afraid that I am not understanding you. What is it that you are talking about? What I mean to say is, what it that you are saying that you know?" he asked. Later in his life, he would look back at this moment and ask himself how he could possibly not have known what it was the young man in front of him was talking about. It was truly an impossibly obvious thing for someone who knew the true heritage of said young man. Naruto stared at the elderly Hokage in front of him for several moments, wondering if the man had finally started having senior moments or something. Since when is he this stupid? Naruto thought, taking a deep breath to prepare himself for what he was about to say. "Well, here goes nothing," he thought idly. "I know about how my father is the fourth Hokage," he said simply, trying to ignore the sudden commotion that started at his words. "You liar!" Someone yelled, outraged that the demon would dare say such a thing about the great fourth Hokage. "Demon," another said, trying to get closer to the blonde so that he could hurt him as much as possible. "You, yeah, right," a third person yelled, laughing as though it was all a funny joke. Naruto looked around at the people shouting at him, feeling sad at the comments that they were yelling. Their words hurt him deeply, but it wasn't the demon comments that most people were yelling in the background. It was the insult, the Hokage comments that were actually hurting him. "They think it's an insult that I could even be considered my father's son, and it's because of it," he thought, turning his eyes to the ground, trying to not think about all the things everyone was saying about him. Sarutobi took only a few seconds longer to finally realize what everyone was saying, and the moment he realized what they were shouting, he quickly became angry himself, angry at them for saying such things against Naruto. It had taken him so long to finally hear what they were saying because the moment Naruto had finally said what he had come to say, Sarutobi had become temporarily trapped in his own thoughts about how he could have found out. And he also had many painful memories flying through his head of both Naruto's childhood plight of being alone, as well as the Yondame's time in the village. This was not something he was going to let happen. They would not deny Naruto his birthright under any circumstance. Not if he could help it. Silence. Everyone in the room immediately stopped talking, even if they were outraged at the demon brat. No one was fool enough to defy the Hokage and think they would live to tell the tale. Apart from knowing that he was giving an order, there was one other reason that the entire place went silent when the elder ninja yelled for silence. Sarutobi, the Sandame Hokage of the village hidden in the leaf, was, for a lack of a better word, pissed. "That is quite enough. I have never been so ashamed of all of you. If he were lying, I would have said so before now. Did none of you think of that, or were you thinking that in my old age I am too senile to know anything?" Glaring around the room, he waited in silence as though he actually expected someone to say something about his age hindering his mind. Giving the occupants of the room another once over, Sarutobi continued to speak. "Now, I believe that most of you by now understand what I meant, but if he was lying." With that comment, the room started to buzz again with whispers, due to the fact that no one could believe what he was saying to them. "I do not believe I gave you permission to speak yet," he said, glaring at the room once more. Silence was immediately established once more. Turning his attention to the youngest ninja in the room, Sarutobi's eyes softened. He couldn't exactly be angry at the young man for telling the whole room what was supposed to be a secret. It was his own fault, not the blonde-haired boy's. And now it was time to answer the questions that the said boy would probably have running through his head. "Now, seeing as the room now knows of your heritage, ask me anything that you wish. I'm sure that you have many questions you want to ask me," said, knowing that he was right. There was no way that anyone could find out that much information about themselves that they didn't know and not have any questions. Naruto looked at him with the most intense eyes that the old Hokage had ever seen. The eyes were not so much hurt as defiant and yet curious. It was the strangest combination that he had ever seen, yet made the young man seem older than he really was. After several moments, Sarutobi figured out why those eyes seemed so strange. "Those are her eyes," he thought, smiling to himself. Naruto had 1,000 questions running through his head, and yet only one was able to truly come to the surface. "I want to know, why didn't you tell me?" That one question spoke volumes about the boy and about how he now felt. Sighing deeply, the elderly man sat down in his chair, knowing that he was on the wrong side of things for once. "I didn't tell you, because I knew that if I had, you would have been more confused about why you were mistreated than ever. It also didn't help that your father has made many enemies over his time, and it would not be the best idea to tell a small child, no matter how smart they may be, about their father when so many others might find out from said child and try to hurt him. But that doesn't give you the right to not tell me at least when I entered the academy or when I graduated. You know that it isn't your decision to make, whether I am strange enough or old enough to know who my family is," he said, not getting angry but looking at the Hokage as though he had lost all trust in him, and he had. It would be a long time before he ever truly trusted the old man again, and everyone in the room could see that. The fact that he had yet to start calling him Jiji-san in his entire speech was evidence enough to that. Sinking slightly into his chair, the Hokage looked at his desk, not being able to look into those blue eyes. He was right. It wasn't his place to deny someone their heritage. "I know that, and all I have to say for it is that I am sorry." And with that, he finally forced himself to look up into the blonde boy's eyes. Naruto sighed deeply, knowing that it was pointless to continue the conversation in the direction that it was currently going. "Fine, now for my other questions," he said, looking again into the eyes of the older man. Sarutobi had the decency to make himself look even older than he already did by sinking yet again into the chair. I think it's going to eat him at this rate. I don't know how much more he can sink into that thing." "Yes," H asked simply. "Where is my mother's family? Why have I never seen them? My dad said that they are more secretive than any other ninja family around in Konoha, or even in the world for that matter, but even if they were, wouldn't I have seen them sometime in my life, at least in passing?" It was a very good question, and the Hokage had to hold himself back from being shocked or proud outwardly to the young man. Most people would have just asked, "Where are they?" "Can I see them?" No really thinking too much about why they haven't seen them. "Well," he said sadly, not wanting to tell the young man the rather sad news. "They are around, but they don't, I mean." "You mean they don't want me to be part of the family?" Naruto said rather sadly. He knew that they probably wouldn't want him, but hearing it was the worst part of it. At least if he didn't have it confirmed, then he might have a chance at a family. "I'm sorry, Naruto, I really am," he said, looking sadly at the young man before him. He knew that he wanted a family more than anything, but he wasn't going to lie to him. That would just hurt him when he met them. "I know of at least one that might want to help, though I don't know where he is at the moment. He usually goes to check on his herd of elk this time of year. or one of his many flocks, but I am not sure where it is that he keeps them." He said sadly. "But on a happier note, I know that he at least would be willing to give you a chance, and he might even help you get a hold on your Keki Genki one. This is his address," he said, pulling out a slip of paper from just about nowhere and scribbling something on it. "If you go to that address in a week or two, he should be there. Then again, he might stop off and visit one of his friends, but if that happens, you can probably find him near the brothels or the spas," he said, handing the paper to the now not breathing blonde boy. "A family," said young man, though, as he took the piece of paper and held it tightly in his hands, as though he was scared that if he lightened his grip on it even a little, then it would probably disappear or something. Looking up at the old man again, Naruto's eyes began to ask the question that would not leave his lips. "Yes, Naruto, this is for real," said the Hokage, chuckling. Throughout this whole time, both Naruto and the Hokage had ignored the whispers of the people in the background. It was clear that the whole of the Jonins in the room were shocked about everything that was going on. Though the two in question already knew this, they would later see just how shocked they were. "Are there any other questions that you would like to ask?" The Hokage questioned. He knew that there had to be 1,000 more questions, but he also knew that it was a lot to take in and that he had to pace the boy for all the information. Naruto shook his head as he slowly turned around. It took Naruto several minutes to tear his eyes from the paper, and when he finally did, he was shocked at the sight that met him. The Hokage was just as shocked at the sight. When Naruto and the Hokage saw what was going on, they were both flabbergasted. Kakashi was busy holding back a rather enraged Uruka, who in turn was madly swinging a giant metal rod around that had apparently already broken in half from being slammed over the head of some poor misfortunate fool who was currently knocked out on the ground. Apparently, the demon comments hadn't stopped. Naruto was sitting on his bed, happy that Kabuto wasn't in the room to annoy the hell out of him. It was nice that the Sasuke-obsessed bastard had needed to do something with his teammates and left a while ago. He was really starting to piss Naruto off with all the questions about Sasuke. Sheesh, he's as bad as his fangirls. Naruto thought as he again took the little piece of paper out of his pocket and looked at it again. He couldn't believe that he was really this close to getting a family. Even if it was just one person, he didn't care. It was a family just the same, and hopefully in time the others would come to accept him as well. Sighing deeply, Naruto put the paper back into his pocket and laid back onto his bed. He knew that he was forgetting to do something, but he couldn't help not caring at the moment. It was just a really happy feeling to know he actually had someone out there to call family. A couple hours later. The next morning, Naruto woke up with a start as a loud voice over an intercom system shouted for all the participating genins in the competition to be ready in 3 hours, and to be in the arena on time. Sighing deeply, Naruto got up and walked to his pile of clothes that were sitting in the middle of the floor. "It looks like someone went through them, but who would go through my clothes? And why?" he thought, picking his clothes up off the floor. Suddenly, Naruto had a horrible thought and started searching for a single piece of paper in the pockets, only to remember that he had had it with him when he went to sleep. Walking over to his bed, Naruto let out a deep sigh of relief when he found that the address of his only relative that he knew would even speak to him was sitting right on his pillow in a dent, indicating that he had eventually rolled over onto it for some strange reason. Are you people happy? I spelled it right this time." "Yeah." "So please stop the yelling. It's hurting. My little head turns into a chibai and holds his head in pain." After making a mental note to himself to talk to the Hokage about his suspicions of someone going through his things, Naruto got dressed and headed out the door into the hallway and began to look for his teammates. Even if he really didn't feel like talking to them, he knew that they needed to know about a possible spy, and they also would have to know about someone going through his stuff if he was right. After turning down a new hallway, Naruto came face to face with the one person that he hated more than Sasuke. "Hey Naruto, what's up?" said an annoyingly cheerful voice from a teen with white hair and glasses that seemed to always shine light right back into Naruto's eyes. "Hi Kabuto, if you're here to ask more questions about Sasuke." Then Naruto started, only to stop when something clicked. "Someone went through my stuff. He's my roommate, a spy who is connected to that snake bastard who wants Sasuke's running around, and this guy keeps asking about Sasuke, more so than his fangirls ever did, and I've never seen him in the village before, and I've been beaten or insulted by just about everyone in the village." He, though, as he feigned a cough to cover up his pause. In talking. Yes, I know, out of character a bit for him to catch on to stuff this fast, but I want my Naruto to actually have a brain, or at least part of one D. Sorry, I was saying I don't know where he is, and I don't feel like talking. he said, looking back up at the white-haired teen with an annoyed look in his eyes, hoping that the man wouldn't figure out what it was he was thinking. Lucky for him, Kabuto thought he was an idiot. Maybe you should have someone look at the cough. I do specialize in medical jutsus. Maybe I can help, he said, going through a few hand seals while approaching Naruto. No, really. I'll be fine. I prefer healing the long way anyways. I have a thing about doctors, he said, rubbing the back of his head and inadvertently adding to the stupid look, thought he didn't know this. He really is an idiot, isn't he? Kabuto thought, while letting the chakra he had summoned to his hands dissipate. Putting back on his nice guy smile, Kabuto began to say what he had practiced for the past hour, hoping that the idiot would fall for it. If Orochimaru's plans were to succeed, then he would need to actually pull this off, since that was what his master wanted. Actually, I'm here to talk to you about something. There is a rumor that there is a spy somewhere, and I wanted to know if you knew anything about who it might be. I mean, you do seem to have the ability to read people pretty well. He lied, all the while thinking, he's an idiot. All I have to do is compliment him a few times, and he'll see how nice Orochimaru's people are, compare them to the way people treat him here, and he's in. Of course, he had no idea that Naruto was onto him, and that his plan had pretty much backfired. Bingo, and we have a spy. Shesh, he doesn't think I'm that stupid, does he? Well, let's just go with it anyways, Naruto thought while putting on his idiot smile. So you noticed, did you? Naruto asked with a huge yet believable fake grin on his face. I'm totally awesome, ain't I? He asked, keeping up the act. All those years of playing the idiot are finally paying off, he thought while Kabuto smirked. Yeah, it's easy to tell that you have some talents. I'm surprised you're still a genin. I would have thought that you would have already passed this test years ago, Kabuto said, adding some icing to the proverbial cake. You think? Naruto asked, mentally rolling his eyes. I know so. I'm kind of shocked you're on the same team as Sasuke. They usually put the dead last with the top in the class, but it's weird, isn't it? You would think that you have the dead last on your team instead of being stuck on Sasuke's team. I said the same thing. Really? I should have known. Great minds think alike. You're probably going to manage to come up with your own nin-info cards after seeing mine. Darn, maybe I should make a new set. Can't fall behind now, can I? Kabuto said while giving a fake laugh. Naruto sighed, wondering when this was going to end. He now had twice as much to do than he did before and only a couple hours to do it all in. Well, I'm sorry, I really don't know anything about the spy. I have heard the rumors, thought. Maybe I'll ask Sasuke and Sakura if they've seen anything strange. Naruto asked, hoping that it would end the conversation quickly. He really needed to find Kakashi now. Cool, you do that, but can you do me a favor? Can you not mention any of this to anyone? I don't want whoever the spy is to find out that we were talking about this. He might come after one of us, and that would probably be a bad thing, Kabuto said while looking around to add to the feel of what he was saying. He's falling for it. The demon is so easy to trick, he thought while mentally smirking to himself. Naruto nodded to Kabuto while the white-haired man thanked him and headed off in the opposite direction that he had came. Meanwhile, in Naruto's head, a chibi Naruto was bowing while holding a trophy that was a good 3 times his height, while random people, though flowers, and every girl in the Rookie 9 were jumping on him, screaming his name. All the while, all said chibi was able to say was, thank you, thank you. All this was going through his head for his good performance that seemed to have Kabuto right where he wanted him. Few minutes later in the Hokage's office in the Forest of Death. Hokage-sama, Anko said as she entered the room. Yes, Anko. Uzumaki would like to speak to you. He says he has information on who the spy might be, she said in a rather psychotic way that let you know of what she would want to do to the spy if she ever caught him or her. Yes, she would have a lot of fun with them. Then, can someone please tell me why she isn't with Ibiki in the anime or manga? They are the perfect couple, don't worry though. I said they would be a perfect couple in the anime and manga, not my fic though. I have a man in mind for Anko, and what a dolphin he is, D. Saratobi almost hit the floor at the look on her face. It was so sadistic that he was almost willing to run out of the room screaming, just get away from it. But being the Hokage meant that he couldn't do something like that. Well, that and there was a huge stack of the most evil thing in the world sitting in his path to the door. Kami, I hate paperwork, he thought before bowing his head to indicate that she should let the young blonde in to speak with him as soon as possible. Shortly after Anko let Naruto into the room, Naruto explained his findings to the Hokage and told him about the nin-info cards as well as about how someone had gone through his stuff in his room. Shortly after that, Naruto and the Hokage both went down to the arena and prepared to start the next part of the test. That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share, and do comments.